I was kind of scared coming into Wonder Egg Priority episode 12, or should we call it episode 11 at this point? Because we just got news that they have delayed the actual finale for this series until June the 29th specifically. And so obviously this isn't the final episode. And so I guess we can technically say that that recap episode was not actually supposed to be there and that this was episode 11. Well, that's too confusing. Let's just stick with the 12. We'll call the next one 13 or something. But yeah, I was a little bit scared coming in this episode because obviously they're having production issues. Obviously there has been delay in this next episode, and it kind of started out a little bit questionable because we had a very wide shot of the characters, the camera, the visual of it slowly zooming in on where they're located at, and that's usually a pretty fire sign that there is issues happening. Like they are having issues producing this, which is, unfortunate because we don't want the animators to be worked to death, but at the same time, it does technically, it takes away from the feel of the show when you're actually, questioning visual decisions. And there's a couple other shots that were kind of questionable, but they kind of caught back on their feet. It seemed like most of the rest of the episode looked great. They had a lot of really great visual pieces in there as well, so while not like a completely out of this world, stellar, crazy animation episode, it did the work. It did the job. It still looked good. It still had some really impactful scenes in it and everything. So good on them for still keeping things together. Unfortunately, you have to wait for that last episode, as I mentioned in my previous video. But yes, this episode kind of opened up with the group getting together and them kind of revealing, Momoe and Rika kind of revealing what happened. And it was a really kind of a unsettling moment here because obviously Rika's going to ask Momoe, you knew, why didn't you say something? She got killed and I could have prevented it. And she's like, well, what have you done? Just jumped in front of her? You would have ended up dead, basically. So it's like, yeah, she's technically right there, but at the same time, it's like, you probably should have said something. But it kind of falls on Rika at this point she wants to get revenge, so she's dead set on going back. We see her later where she's trying to get in somehow, and they keep refusing to give her anything to get back in, because they claim that the way that she is now, the way that Rika is right now, she could eventually fall victim to Frill. So they're essentially saying that, I guess her being in a negative state, Frill could essentially take control of her. And so that's a curious thing. We'll see if that ends up being something they'll get into later or not. But Momoe here is pretty upset. She's like, it sucks because it almost feels like as if Momoe blames them in some way. She says to Ai that, you shouldn't have called out to me or something like that. So obviously Ai kind of accepting her and pulling her in is what she's putting the blame on, which is really unfortunate. It almost feels very out of character for Momoe. She's obviously upset, so she's going to say things that she doesn't really believe. But I almost feel like Momoe, if anybody, is going to be the first to kind of jump back on the team and help, because I think her, of anybody in the team, is going to be the most level-headed to, overcome things and help each other, because she's got a very soft heart in there. And whereas Rika, she's very headstrong. She's probably going to keep, banging on the wall until Aka and Uraka let her back in, so to speak. So yeah, following this, most of the episode was kind of devoted to Ai Oto going into a dream world. They force Aka and Uraka actually force her to summon her familiar, which was kind of upsetting. They're like, we created her, we summon her. And she's like, no, I don't want to. And she's like, well, we created it, we can summon it. So they technically Aka summons it. Throughout this episode, it really does seem like Uraka is noticing that Aka is kind of stepping out of line. He's pushing the girls, and he mentions at some point, you don't really care about Frill, do you? And then, you don't really care about anything. And the only thing you're really, concerned with is saving Himari. So a little bit of a clashing of heads there. I'm really curious if they'll end up having Aka and Uraka go head to head at some point. Obviously, they're having a difference in how to handle this current situation and how to handle the girls. But we'll see if that ends up coming into something more later. But yeah, like I said, Ai Oto was a significant part of this episode. She ends up summoning an egg, or cracking the egg, and herself came out of it. And I'm like, oh, who's who's gonna be the bad guy? Who's gonna be the bad guy? And sure enough, Sawaki pops up. So yeah, that's crazy. But it was cute just before then, having I pretty much confronting herself. So this is like a point in which they just completely reveal that there is parallel worlds. So I'm very concerned about this. We've just out of nowhere, and the one from the last episode just suddenly pop out of nowhere and say, oh, by the way, parallel worlds. Please keep it simple. Please, writers, keep it simple. Don't get crazy with the parallel worlds. But I almost feel like the writer intentionally brought in this concept of parallel worlds, hopefully strictly just for Ai Oto to confront herself. And that's enough for me. Please keep it there. But it was very cute because it essentially makes Ai acknowledge where she's been and where she's at. Because this other Ai Oto didn't have Koito, didn't have Neru, didn't have Riku, didn't have Momoe, and didn't acknowledge her mother as much as our Ai Oto. And so it's really cute. She's like, you become strong. She's like, yeah, I have become strong. And she's like, you're really happy, aren't you? And she's like, she kind of broke into tears. And it's like, yeah, I'm super happy. Almost felt like it was an unsure there, but I think it's because she just realizes what she has, what she's got. And that's what really, it's happy tears, so to speak. But yeah, it kind of reveals that this other Ai Oto seemingly had ended her life through drowning. Apparently, she had confessed love to Sawaki, and Sawaki loved her mother, and then she ended her life after that. So, yeah. And of course, they have a fight. Ends up Ai Oto meets Koito again in this world. Was almost about to jump off a ledge, and then she's like, you regret this, don't you? You really do regret this. And then she realized that it seems like all this stuff is kind of a way of causing her to doubt herself. After rejecting this seemingly, I guess, a temptation of death that Ai ends up having, she defeats Sawaki, and then she's confronted by, get this, Kirara Rodriguez, matured 18 Evening Star SS Plum. So there was another one besides hyphen and dot, and it apparently is this thing, which is an absurd name. But yeah, she tries to take it on, is quickly destroyed, just like all the rest of them. And the only thing that keeps her safe is the other Ai protecting her and taking a shot for her. And it seems like she's passed away. She did turn to dust, so I'm hoping that she made it, but she's technically already dead, so question mark there. What happens to them if they fail to save the egg? But yeah, and that's obviously defeated Ai, and she's upset at this point. So we'll see where she goes here to come in June. But yeah, crazy episode. Unfortunately, not really much revealed in this episode, and I think that's the only unfortunate thing. Having this kind of upset at the very beginning, not really having anything really truly revealed. Just really the only reveal is having them come together and realize that something is wrong, and Akka and Akka butting heads by what they want to do going forward. So at this point, we have to wait until June, and I will definitely be here to give my impressions on that when it comes around. I hope you guys enjoyed my impressions on this one. Unfortunately, not really much to go over, as not much has been revealed in this episode. I hope it's not really a case of the writing getting stuck, because that would be unfortunate, because we only have really one more episode to really tackle a lot of things. So we still don't know what Ai and Koito said, so yeah, that. But hope you guys enjoy it, and as always, if you do like this video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I thank you all for watching, and y'all take care.